Imagine an artist who decides to record an entire album by singing directly into a built-in laptop microphone.
Right, like not even a fancy external USB mic.
Exactly. Not a studio mic, just a tiny, pinhole microphone sitting next to the keyboard on a standard MacBook.
Yeah.
We are talking about someone literally hiding in hotel closets, surrounded by whimper coats just to get decent acoustics, or whispering melodies at really quiet airport gates while waiting for a connecting flight.
It sounds totally ridiculous when you put it like that.
It does. You would probably think, well, okay, that's a quirky, ultra-lo-fi, do-it-yourself project that is going to sound like it was recorded inside a tin can.
Right.
But then imagine that a few years later, that exact same artist releases a masterwork that earns a Grammy nomination for Best Engineered Album.
It is, honestly, it's an incredible contradiction. I mean,
Yeah.
you are looking at someone who went from the most rudimentary, almost anti-studio setup imaginable to being recognized by the Recording Academy for the sheer, pristine sonic quality of her engineering.
Welcome to another episode of PeaglePod. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the fascinating, paradoxical, and honestly completely mesmerizing world of Caroline Polachek.
Yeah, we have a really massive stack of sources for this
We
one.
do. We've got deep dive interviews, studio production notes, historical profiles, and even music theory breakdowns. And if you're listening to this, you might already know who she is. Or maybe you just recognize her as the American singer, producer, and songwriter who managed to pull off this incredibly rare magic trick in the modern music industry.
Totally.
She made the leap from being known as, the girl from that indie pop band in the iPod commercial to becoming one of the most innovative, critically acclaimed Avant-Pop solo artists of our time.
And our mission for this deep dive is to extract exactly how she achieved that. We are really exploring how an artist who fundamentally refused to be pigeonholed proved that embracing your own eccentricities,
Yeah.
what one of our source articles beautifully called her Too-Muchness, can actually be the exact key to global pop success.
Right.
Like, she didn't water her art down for the masses. She made the masses come to her.
Which is so rare. But to understand how she built this totally unique sonic world, we kind of have to start with her brain wiring, I think, because her early musical education is completely bizarre.
Oh, absolutely.
She was born in Manhattan in 1985, but her musical foundation wasn't built on, American pop radio at all.
No, not even close.
Uh-huh.
From the ages of 1 to 6, her family relocated to Tokyo, Japan.
Wow. Okay.
And neuroscientifically speaking, those are the most critical, formative years for human brain development, especially regarding language and sound processing.
Right, right.
So while most American kids that age are listening to standard Western nursery rhymes or whatever, Polachek was completely immersed in traditional Japanese songs and the opening themes of anime shows.
Which, those have a very distinct sound, right? But what does that actually mean for the listener? If I'm hearing a traditional Japanese folk song or an anime theme, what is happening musically that makes it sound so different from, say, a standard Disney song?
Well, it mostly comes down to the scales being used.
Okay.
Western pop music relies heavily on 7-note scales that are just packed with half steps. And those half steps create a feeling of tension and then a feeling of release when the melody resolves.
Right, that classic pop satisfaction.
Exactly. But Japanese singing and anime themes, they often rely heavily on minor keys and pentatonic tonalities.
Pentatonic meaning a 5-note scale.
Yes, exactly. When you remove those 2 extra notes, you remove that traditional Western tension, the melodies start to leap around more. They feel open, floating, yet highly angular and unpredictable.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, and that musical geometry didn't just wash over a young Caroline Polachek. It permanently stuck in her subconscious. It formed the foundational architecture, what she intuitively felt a pop melody should do.
Okay, so she has this angular, floating Japanese musical foundation. Then her family moves back to the States to Connecticut, and her parents divorce in 1994. Now, her father was a scholar in Chinese history and a trained classical musician, so she is growing up in this really intense intellectual environment, and she was, by her own admission, a very hyperactive kid.
Very hyperactive.
But the remedy her parents used for this hyperactivity is so incredibly specific.
I love this detail so much. To calm her down, both of her parents, at their respective houses, would play the music of Enya.
Enya, I want you listening to this to just imagine that combination for a second. It is like her brain was a synthesizer with the wires crossed, plugging the calming, atmospheric, ambient input of Enya directly into the hyperactive, jagged output of Japanese anime.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
Yeah.
And it creates a fascinating internal musical compass. You have the frenetic, complex structures from Japan and then the lush, vocal-heavy washes of sound from Enya.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you have to factor in rhythm, too. She grew up riding horses in Connecticut.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she explicitly credits that experience for teaching her about rhythm and vocal control. The physical cadence of a horse galloping actually translated into a musical understanding of how rhythm breathes.
Which her dad clearly picked up on early. There is this great detail in the sources where her dad gives her a Yamaha keyboard.
Right.
But it wasn't this grand, nurturing gesture to foster her genius. He literally just wanted to keep her from banging disruptively on the family piano.
It was a decoy instrument.
Yes, it was a total decoy. But it ended up turning her into a synthesizer player from a very young age.
So she is isolated in the suburbs, absorbing all these completely disparate inputs.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually that isolated musical brain has to interact with the real world.
Right.
So as a teenager, she started traveling into New York City, sneaking into DIY punk shows, post-hardcore emo gigs, and jazz clubs.
And we cannot skip the knitting factory story because it feels like a metaphor for her whole career.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Tell it.
So she is a teenager. She tries to get into the knitting factory in New York with a fake ID, and the bouncer straight up rejects her. The mainstream door is closed.
Yep.
But who happens to be standing there to personally walk this teenager past the bouncers? Mike Patton, the legendary, highly eccentric frontman of Faith No More.
It is just brilliant. The mainstream rejects her, and the alternative avant-garde literally ushers her into the building. She is brought into the alternative music scene by alternative music royalty.
It's so perfect. So how does a teenager with that kind of pedigree transition into being a working musician? She goes to college at the University of Colorado Boulder, right?
Right, and that's where she meets Aaron Fenning, and they form the band Chairlift. They eventually relocate to New York University, bring in Patrick Wimberly, and plant themselves firmly in the late 2000s Brooklyn indie music scene.
And this is where we hit the first massive turning point. In 2008, Chairlift releases their debut studio album, Does You Inspire You? That album includes a track called Bruises.
Which changes everything.
Almost overnight, Bruises is licensed for an Apple iPod Nano commercial.
Yeah.
Now wait, I need to stop you here and play devil's advocate for a second. If you remember 2008, an iPod commercial was the absolute holy grail of music placement.
Oh, 100%.
It was the equivalent of a viral TikTok moment today, but with a massive corporate paycheck attached. I mean, most indie bands would have sacrificed their own drummer to get that kind of exposure. So why are the sources framing this early commercial hit as a trap?
Well, because of the flattening effect of the music industry.
What do you mean?
When you get a massive commercial hit that early, especially tied to a tech ad, the industry stops looking at you as an evolving artist and starts looking at you as a product. You become totally two-dimensional.
Oh, I see.
You are forever the quirky indie band from the Apple commercial.
Yeah.
The labels want you to recreate that exact same cute, accessible sound for the rest of your career.
Imagine being 22 years old, getting a check from Apple, and having every executive tell you exactly who you are supposed to be. It would be incredibly hard to say, well, actually, my musical DNA is made of pentatonic anime themes, Enya, and DIY punk.
It takes immense willpower.
Yeah.
And she rebelled against that commercially viable box by really seizing control of the canvas. She didn't just sing in Chairlift. She started directing their music videos like Amnesia and I Belong in Your Arms.
Right.
She realized that if she didn't control her own visual and artistic narrative, the industry would just write it for her.
But even directing videos wasn't enough space for her. And this leads us to the wildest duality in her career.
Yeah, this part is crazy.
While she is still actively touring and performing as the frontwoman of Chairlift, she essentially creates a secret identity. In 2013, she starts performing underground sets under the alias Ramona Lisa.
Which is just an old pseudonym she used on Facebook, right?
Exactly. And this becomes her 2014 self-produced album, Arcadia.
Arcadia is where we really see her philosophy of production take shape. She wrote this album during an artistic residency at the Villa Medici in Rome.
Wow, fancy.
Yeah. And she described the sound she was going for as pastoral electronic music.
Mm-hmm.
But the methodology, like how she actually built it, is what is truly staggering.
This is the hotel closet era.
Yes.
Let's really dig into the mechanics of this because the contrast is insane to me. She is in Rome looking out the window at this ancient, organic, lush landscape. but she's making the album entirely on a laptop without a single physical instrument or external microphone.
Right, she was relying entirely on MIDI instruments.
Which are what, exactly?
Well, for those who might not know, MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It isn't actually recorded sound. It is data.
Oh, okay.
It is essentially digital sheet music, just ones and zeros telling a computer when to trigger a synthesized note, how long to hold it, and how loud to play it.
And MIDI usually sounds incredibly rigid and artificial, right? Like a robotic player piano or something?
Exactly. By 2014, MIDI had been around for decades, and it was notorious for sounding incredibly stiff. But Polachek's goal was to manipulate that rigid, computer-generated data until it sounded organic and mysterious, matching the natural beauty she was seeing out her window in Rome.
And the vocals. Because she was on a relentless world tour with Chairlift while making this, she couldn't just book studio time.
No.
So she is literally singing directly into her computer's built-in microphone. She is dragging winter coats into hotel closets to deaden the acoustic reflections.
It's so incredibly resourceful.
She is sitting at quiet airport gates, whispering vocal takes into her MacBook. I mean, it is the ultimate guerrilla recording setup.
It proves a fundamental point about her artistry, honestly. The vision matters infinitely more than the gear. You don't need $1 million studio if you understand how to manipulate the tools right in front of you.
But wait, here's the part that genuinely confuses me. While she is doing this hyper DIY underground alias project in hotel closets, she is simultaneously operating at the absolute pinnacle of mainstream pop.
Oh yeah, the Beyonce connection.
Because in 2013, the very same year, she is whispering into a laptop as Ramona Lisa. She co-writes and co-produces a track called No Angel for Beyonce. And not just any Beyonce album, the critically acclaimed surprise drop self-titled album.
Right.
How do those two realities even coexist?
They coexist because she is building a staggering, multifaceted toolkit. Her production and engineering work on No Angel actually earned her a Grammy nomination for Album of the Year as part of Beyonce's nomination for that record.
That's wild.
He was operating at the highest echelon of the industry, but always in service of someone else's vision. Or she was hiding behind an alias, or compromising within the democratic structure of an indie band.
Just to recap this for you listening at home, she is scoring runway shows for high fashion designers. She is composing ballet performances for the Dutch National Ballet. She is singing into a laptop mic in an airport gate as an alter ego. And she is producing for the biggest pop star on earth. The amount of scaffolding she was building behind the scenes is just immense.
Which is why, when she finally dismantled the scaffolding, the result was so undeniable. In 2017, Chairlift officially disbands.
Right.
And instead of creating another alias or retreating into behind-the-scenes production, she steps completely into the light under her own name.
Which leads us to 2019. She releases her debut solo album, Pang, and it is massive. It gives us the single, So Hot You're Hurting My Feelings, which absolutely explodes virally and earns an RIAA Gold certification.
Pang was really the crystallization of the Avant-Pop sound she had been cultivating for a decade. But the absolute peak of this ascendance arrives a bit later, in 2023, with her masterpiece album, Desire, I Want to Turn Into You.
The accolades for this album are just absurd. It charts globally. Pitchfork names the track Bunny is a Writer, their #1 song of 2021.
Yeah.
And the album receives a Grammy nomination for Best Engineered Album, which is just a beautiful, poetic, full-circle moment from the days of deadening sound with winter coats in a closet.
It is the ultimate validation of her ear and her technical prowess, really.
But I need you to explain the alchemy here. Avant-garde usually means niche. It usually means difficult or, inaccessible. How does she manage to balance being so deeply weird and eccentric with making music that actually dominates year-end lists? What are the actual mechanics of a Caroline Polachek pop song?
The mechanics shouldn't work together, to be honest, but she forces them to through sheer willpower and vocal talent. Critics have frequently described her as Gen Z's Kate Bush.
Oh, wow.
And that is a very weighty, intentional comparison. Kate Bush was a producer and vocalist who was formally eccentric, completely unapologetic about her intensity, and who refused to compromise her weirdness for radio play. Polachek leans into that exact same space.
So what are the specific ingredients she is blending to get there?
Well, she is taking the massive, highly technical, anthemic vocal runs of someone like Celine Dion.
Okay.
Then she's blending that with the gritty, straight-up grunge influence of bands like Kitty, who she actually explicitly named as an influence for her 2024 track Starburned and Unkissed.
Celine Dion and grunge.
Yeah. And then she layers all of that over the minor pentatonic Japanese pop sensibilities she absorbed as a toddler.
It's like she isn't trying to find the lowest common denominator to fit into the pop landscape. She is demanding that the pop landscape expand to fit her.
Exactly. And that uncompromising nature isn't just a musical aesthetic either. It is deeply embedded in her ethics and how she navigates the industry as a whole. She is fiercely principled.
Right, and we saw a crystal clear example of that in 2018 with the Moogfest incident.
Yes.
This was a major electronic music festival. She was scheduled to perform, but she pulled out at the last minute. The festival organizers had released a promotional announcement specifically highlighting a list of female artists performing that year, despite the overall lineup still being overwhelmingly male.
And she didn't just quietly drop off the bill to avoid drama. She was highly vocal about her reasoning.
Yeah, she was.
She publicly stated that using the female artists' names in that way, without their permission, was exploitative. She called it self-congratulatory PR. Her argument was incredibly sharp. She said festivals have a responsibility to position inclusivity as simply normal. When you highlight it as a special marketing gimmick, you're still treating female producers as an anomaly.
It shows a total refusal to let her identity or her art be commodified for someone else's brand management. And we see this refusal to separate her personal convictions from her public platform in other areas as well.
Definitely.
For example, the sources note that in October 2023, she co-signed an open letter from the group Artists for Ceasefire, which was directed at President Biden regarding the Gaza war. It is simply a factual reflection of how she operates. She does not compartmentalize who she is for the sake of industry comfort.
And because she is so firmly rooted in who she is, it allows her collaborative universe to be wildly expansive. Like, she can step into entirely different cultural spheres without losing her own identity.
What are some examples of that?
Well, in 2024, she is featured on the remix version of the song Everything is Romantic for Charli XCX's massive Brat remix album, which is, the absolute epicenter of club pop culture.
Right, huge moment.
And then she completely pivots. She goes from Charli XCX to collaborating with the legendary video game auteur Hideo Kojima. She wrote an original song called On the Beach for his highly anticipated 2025 game Death Stranding 2.
The through line between Charli XCX and Hideo Kojima is actually profound when you think about it.
How so?
Both of them are ultimate world builders in their respective mediums. They don't just make songs or games, they create entire cultural ecosystems. They recognize that Caroline Polachek isn't just a vocalist they can hire, she is a fellow world builder. They are bringing her in to construct a sonic universe.
That is a great point.
She is literally everywhere building these massive cultural touchstones. But amidst all of this high-level art and industry dominance, there is one detail from the sources that I absolutely cannot let go of.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say.
It is the quirkiest, most perfectly Caroline Polachek detail imaginable. In an interview, she was asked about her musical soulmates. She didn't name a producer. She didn't name a classic singer. She named swallows. The birds.
Yes. She considers swallows to be her musical soulmates.
I mean, I love the poetry of that, but what does it actually mean? Is it a literal translation? Like, do her vocal melodies mimic their erratic flight paths?
That is exactly what it means, yeah. And if you listen to her music, it is the perfect mechanical metaphor for her vocal style.
Really?
Yeah. If you watch a swallow fly, it does not move in a straight, predictable, efficient line from point A to point B. It swoops, it dives, it suddenly changes direction with this incredibly sharp angular grace.
Which goes right back to the angular pentatonic Japanese melody she learned as a kid.
Exactly. That is what she does with her voice. She doesn't just hit a note dead on and hold it. She glides around it, drops a full octave without warning, and then suddenly leaps into a piercing falsetto. It is unpredictable, it is soaring, and most importantly, it feels entirely natural, not manufactured.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway of this deep dive, I think. Looking at the entire arc of her career, from singing anime things in Tokyo, to deadening acoustics with winter coats in a closet, to earning a Grammy nomination for her engineering, she proves a massive point about what it actually takes to survive in this industry.
She proved that the path to true artistic success isn't about smoothing out your weird edges for mass appeal. It is about doubling down on them.
Yeah.
She trusted the deeply weird instincts she formed listening to Enya and Japanese pop. She treated a built-in laptop mic with the exact same respect and artistic rigor as a multi-million-dollar recording studio. She didn't wait for pop music to make a space for her. She just built a strange, beautiful new house and invited the whole world in.
I want you to think about where music is heading today. We are living in an era where artificial intelligence can generate a mathematically perfect, frictionless pop song in about 3 seconds. But what a machine absolutely cannot generate is the lived-in, chaotic eccentricity of someone who spent their childhood absorbing anime and Enya, whispering into a hotel closet mic and mimicking the flight paths of swallows.
Yeah, you can't fake that.
Going forward, in a world of perfect digital replication, our human too-muchness might be the only thing that actually makes us irreplaceable. Next time you feel the pressure to sand down your own quirks to fit in, remember the artist who looked at a hotel closet and saw a Grammy-nominated studio.
Thanks for listening to TPL Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.